wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic Podcast. Before I go any further, I need to thank Stoic Paralegal and Matt for joining as my latest patrons on patreon.com/Sunday Stoic. As patrons, they get to, if they so choose, attend the book discussion we're having next Wednesday on Seneca's Tranquility of Mind, and they can get in touch with me, suggest show topics and other things. So if you're interested in supporting the show to keep it going, you can do so at www.patreon.com/Sunday Stoic. I hope everyone's doing well. This is Steve. Oh, my son Charlie just woke up from a nap as I hit record. Hi, Charlie. Say hi.
Hi.
You doing okay?
Yeah.
All right. You look sleepy. Why don't you sit in the chair and Daddy will finish this podcast, okay? All right, buddy. Where was I? Oh, so I'm coming to you from my Stoa in Conway, Arkansas. This, of course, is a podcast where we explore the application of ancient philosophy to modern life. I just got back from vacation. It was awesome because I got to get out of my house and hang out with my parents and some cousins. We were all somewhat socially distanced in that we had a cabin that we rented near a lake, so that was nice. Then I came back to the farm in Ohio for a few days before heading back to Arkansas. Meanwhile, we're gearing up to start the semester again. It's going to be weird, and I'm sure it's going to be a mess, but the obstacle hopefully will become the way, and we will navigate this semester in person. We're doing in-person teaching, and I'm sure at some point we'll switch to online teaching when numbers start to spike. But that's where we are here in my life. So, this week I thought, well, what do we got going on in the world? We got coronavirus. We got people who don't believe in science and doing the civic thing and helping others by wearing a mask. We have politics in full swing, where you have basically in the U.S. So you have Trump versus Biden, and lots of people mad at each other. We have Black Lives Matter going on, which of course is important, but we have lots of things going on in the country. I thought maybe a good thing to reflect on this week would be the Stoic view on forgiveness. So we're going to hear from Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius this week on forgiveness. On Clemency by Seneca, Chapter 6.
Look at this city of Rome, in which the widest streets become choked whenever anything stops the crowds which unceasingly pour through them like raging torrents, in which the people streaming to 3 theaters demand the roads at the same time, in which the produce of the entire world is consumed. And reflect, what a desolate waste it would become if only those were left in it whom a strict judge would acquit. How few magistrates are there who ought not be condemned by the very same laws which they administer? How few prosecutors are themselves faultless? I imagine, also, that few men are less willing to grant pardon than those who have often had to beg for it themselves. We have all of us sinned, some more deeply than others, some of set purpose, some either by chance impulse or led away by the wickedness of others. Some of us have not stood bravely enough by our good resolutions, and have lost our innocence, although unwillingly and after a struggle. Nor have we only sinned, but to the very end of our lives we shall continue to sin. Even if there be anyone who has so thoroughly cleansed his mind that nothing can hereafter throw him into disorder or deceive him, yet even he has reached this state of innocence through sin.
The Enchiridion by Epictetus, number 33.
In your sex life, preserve purity as far as you can before marriage. And if you indulge, take only those privileges which are lawful. However, do not make yourself offensive or censorious to those who do indulge, and do not make frequent mention of the fact that you do not yourself indulge.
The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 11, number 18.
Thirdly, that if they do what is right, you ought not to complain. But if what is wrong, clearly they act involuntarily and in ignorance. For as every soul is unwilling to be deprived of the truth, so is it unwilling not to be related to every man according to his worth. At any rate, they resent it if they are spoken of as unjust, inconsiderate, overreaching, in a word, as wrongdoers in regard to their neighbors.
So starting with Seneca, he's writing to Emperor Nero, which has got to be a dangerous person to write to in case you make him mad, right? But he's writing to Nero on clemency, trying to encourage him to not just kill people all the time, to let people go, to forgive. And he uses an example here of, think of this bustling city. There are 3 theaters that, when they open their doors at the same time, the streets get crowded with people trying to rush in, and there's food from all over the world being consumed here. There's people everywhere. But what if you had a judge? What if there was a judge that sat over everyone, and this was a very strict judge, and they only let the purest people through, the people who could be pardoned for having done really nothing wrong. And he says if there was a judge that would only let people in that did nothing wrong, this would be an empty city. Everyone has failed. Everyone has failed at some point. And some of us fail all the time, some of us fail intermittently, but everyone has failed. And if we were a judge that was too harsh, there'd be nobody left. There would be no one around. It would be an empty city. So we have to tolerate that. We have to learn to understand that, to tolerate it in ourselves as well as in others. He even goes on to say that if we were to find a sage, the perfect person, we would know that they have failed in the past. So no one is immune from failure. And so we can use that to reflect when we see something happening. Hey, we do the same thing. You know, we can't remove the splinter in our neighbor's eye before we remove the log in our own eye, right? We all have failed, so therefore to be overly harsh and to judge others too harshly is hypocritical, and will leave the world empty if you start taking people out who you think are unworthy. Epictetus talks about, in this case, indulging in sexual indulgences and things. But he recommends, we live as good a moral life as we can. But importantly here, he says not to judge others for not living up to our standards. If we just go around yelling at others, we start to sound like a cynic, right? Those who would walk around half naked in the streets complaining that others were not living a virtuous life. And that's not what we're about. We want to work on ourselves. We can give advice to others, but we don't want to be judgmental. Epictetus elsewhere talks about forgiving someone over and over and over again. As harsh as Epictetus can be, he's harsh mostly with himself and his students, but when it comes to others who are not necessarily Stoic, he is pretty forgiving. And then Marcus Aurelius. His technique, which is a common one in Stoicism, it stems from Socrates, is this idea that, and he reminds himself here, that no one does wrong intentionally. No one is deprived of the truth on purpose. We have errors in judgment, errors of view, and that's why we make our mistakes. And it is our job, those of us who hopefully are on a more correct path, it is our job not to be mad at those people, to remind ourselves that we are here to work together, like the upper and lower teeth, right? We are here to work together. We are here to educate and help correct. And if someone will not be corrected, we can treat them as we would as a wintry day, something we're not mad at, but we may not want to be around if we can help it. So we may just let them go, but we may not associate with them much anymore, but we won't be harmed by them. So that's some views of to reflect on, to think about when it comes to forgiveness. We can remember that we are flawed and everyone is flawed. And if we were to wipe out everyone who wasn't flawed, there'd be nobody left. We can remind ourselves that we shouldn't be too judgmental. We should judge ourselves, be harsh on ourselves, but easy on others. And then we can also remind ourselves that it is our role to help others, to work together with others, not to just chastise all the time. So maybe that'll be helpful for you in your life. I know I can be a little too judgmental sometimes, and I got to remind myself I should do things constructively and not destructively. Don't tear people down. Instead, let's try to help build others up. And that's what we can do as part of the practice of justice. I hope you have a great week. Stay tuned for next week's episode. I should be having an interview or two coming up on Stoicism and emotions, hopefully coming soon. I may be talking to a few other folks from the Stoic community as well. So stay tuned, and if you have any questions or comments, shoot me an email, sundaystoic@gmail.com. All right, take care, gang. Carpe diem.
Thank you for listening to the Sunday Stoic. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review the Sunday Stoic on iTunes. Become a member of the Sunday Stoic team, earn rewards, and be an integral part of the show by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/SundayStoic. Contact the show by emailing sundaystoic@gmail.com. To find out more, visit www.sundaystoicpodcast.com. And as Steve always says, Carpe diem.